I'm the best there is at what I do.
Tarkatans are born warriors.
Let's see those karate moves, bub.
Over the weekend, everybody who pre-ordered Mortal Kombat 11 got a chance to try out the online beta on the PS4 and Xbox One. Now that time's up and we have to move on until either the next beta or the full release, I figured I'd just offer up some thoughts and impressions on it. I didn't spend nearly as much time with the beta as I'd like to, and the lack of local versus mode certainly didn't help, especially since I didn't have PS Plus at the time. But after trying out each character numerous times in Tower and watching a bunch of videos of online matches, here's a few takeaways I have. First off, the biggest thing to me is that the overall feel of this game is just sort of off from the past two Mortal Kombat games. It doesn't feel that much like MK9, and it also doesn't feel that much like MKX. I would describe it as somewhere in between, and it feels a lot slower mobility-wise like the Injustice games. The combat feels kind of stiff. Everything's very deliberate and also very weighty. A lot of the floatiness, so to speak, of MK9 and MKX isn't really present. This is gonna sound like a weird analogy, but it's like playing Smash Bros with double gravity. Or, as I keep going back to, Injustice, especially Injustice 2. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the way Injustice plays, but I know a lot of people really like Injustice, and Mortal Kombat and Injustice have always had a different feel to them mechanically. This game feels almost like it's blurring the lines between the two franchises. I kinda don't want that to happen, but like I said, I'm not an Injustice guy. I think the consensus overall is that most people are on board with it, so what are you gonna do? Now, comparisons aside, the fighting itself takes some getting used to, but once you do, it is pretty fun. There's a few changes I actually do really like. First off, everything seems a lot more lethal now, in the sense that even short dial-up combos ending with one special move can do a decent chunk of damage. It really adds to the tension, and while you can certainly pull off, the big 10-hit combos that are required in MK9 and MKX, I really like the fact that even the simplest of combos and moves can be the matter between life and death this time around. I also like the idea of the crushing blows now that I've tried them out for myself. Not only are they nice and visceral and you really feel the impact behind them, but even though I didn't spend enough time with the game to figure out how to pull them off consistently, my brain was already going nuts thinking of all the ways you could incorporate them into your playstyle and how you could potentially combo off of them. Hopefully, when the full game comes out, they have all the requirements for the crushing blows in the moves list, which was sorely lacking in the beta. Also, the fact that everything feels heavier and has a lot more impact does feel quite nice when you start to get used to it. The sound effects, of course, add a lot to it as well. Now, some things I'm not too keen on: the way meter works, the way juggling gets changed, fatal blows, and the customization. So meter now regenerates instead of you having to build it yourself. It's a cool idea and concept now that the game is based very heavily on making use of enhanced specials and combo escapes and such, which is not in and of itself bad. However, I just don't like the idea of meter management being a thing of the past. That's always been one of the things I loved about fighting games, is picking and choosing when and where to spend your meter, because you weren't always guaranteed to have it. Now it seems like that's not really going to be an issue for the most part. Old habits die hard, and this is probably me being a stick in the mud. One thing I must be absolutely critical about, though, is the changes to the meter burn mechanic itself. Let me clarify right now that this shit is way better than it was initially. Originally, each move required its own combination to amplify, but now it's been changed to just a regular universal button. Okay, that's nice, but not only did they change the universal dedicated button on me, negating 8 years of muscle memory, but they also switched from a simultaneous button press, the Mortal Kombat style, to a sort of sequential input like Injustice. As I've already stated, I'm not an Injustice guy, and I'm seeing a little too much of it in this game overall. I never liked the way you burned meter in Injustice. I always found it counterintuitive, but to each their own, I guess. The biggest thing about meter overall, though, is that it's now required to properly juggle mid-combo. The many ways you could launch someone and juggle in past Mortal Kombat games simply aren't here anymore. For instance, neutral jump punch doesn't bounce the opponent anymore, and I noticed a lot of characters seem to lack any kind of pop-up combo. There's a few that have them, but not nearly as many. Instead, I noticed that for a combo continuation, the most optimal way to do it is to use enhanced specials to get a bounce or a pop-up. It's not a hard thing to do, and it's made even easier by the fact you have essentially guaranteed meter 90% of the time, but I can't help but admit I like the older style better. I gotta call out Ed Boon directly though, and say, what the fuck, Ed? Scorpion's Spear doesn't stop people in front of him anymore without burning meter? Why are you changing classic moves that have worked since Mortal Kombat 1? For 10 games, it has functioned the same. What's next? Is Sub-Zero's Ice Ball only gonna slow people down and I need to amplify it to actually freeze them? I thought this was your favorite character, Ed. Jokes aside, I want to move on to Fatal Blows, which again, cool in concept, not a fan of in practice. So obviously it's the replacement of X-rays and they don't require meter, and now require you to have limited health. It's a revenge super, like Ultra Combos in Street Fighter 4. And a comeback mechanic, obviously. An interesting change, and I can see why, but I feel like they do a bit too much damage, and it's really easy to upset around by using one. Yeah, you only get one per match, so you have to use it wisely, but it still just strikes me as maybe making the game too easy. With X-rays, you had to have the meter built up, and there was a big risk-reward factor forcing you to gamble, essentially, on using all 3 bars for a lot of damage. Granted, a lot of enhanced combos were usually stronger than X-rays, so you rarely saw them competitively. But I can see why they're trying this new approach, because the Fatal Blows are really cool to watch and it'd be a shame to never see them in the big tournaments. I just get a sense now that Fatal Blows are going to turn into an easy win move, especially because you can combo into them, and the only penalty to whiffing one now is a slight cooldown. Lastly, I want to talk customization. Again, cool in concept, but not a fan of it in execution. And the main problems I have with it is me being a total fanboy, and also hating the very obvious loot box system they're going to implement in the game. I just feel that a lot of characters are going to lose a lot of their uniqueness and identity due to the customization. We're going to be playing online with white Scorpions and green Sub-Zeros, maskless Cabals fighting blue Scarlets. I just don't like it. That, coupled with the fact that there's obviously different rarities to everything from costume pieces to skins to even fatalities and brutalities, the game is looking pretty ripe for exploitation. I hate loot boxes, I hate gambling, I hate color-coded rarity systems and anything outside of an RPG. Therefore, I will hate this if this is actually what the game's going to be like. Now, the final product might be different, but as it stands, I will always prefer unlockable alternate costumes with thought and creativity put into each one that really accentuates the character's style than haphazard character customization and exploitative loot systems. Overall, Mortal Kombat 11 is a bit different than what I expected and what I hoped. I like it, but I do think I like it more for being a Mortal Kombat game and not necessarily as a standalone fighting game. Of course, I won't pass full judgment on it until the game comes out and I do my full review. But seriously, Ed, what the fuck? No local verses in the beta, Ed? No local verses, Ed? Do I have to make this game for you? Also, fix Scorpion's Spear, Ed. I'm gonna stop myself before I tear Ed Boon a new one. I'm just kidding, I love you, Ed. You make good games. You're the best guy. But seriously, hopefully there's another beta in the future that will have local verses, and also maybe a couple of additional characters. I was a little irked by the roster on this one. I don't know, it just seemed weird. Like, Scorpion, yeah, understandable. Baraka, okay, I guess that makes sense. Cabal and Jade, sure. But Scarlet, like, no Sub-Zero in the beta, no Raiden in the beta. Like, I thought we were trying to sell the game here. Where are all the popular characters? Granted, it is a beta for people who already bought the game, so I guess I can see why they would do that too. But anyway, I'm rambling here. I'm just gonna cut it short. But you guys, if any of you played the beta, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think I'm correct? Do you think I'm full of shit? Feel free to make fun of me in the comments like you always do. I like it. It powers me through the day knowing that people absolutely hate my guts because I have an opinion and I make videos for free on the internet. So, I'll see you guys next time.